Hey everybody, so I want to just kind of give you guys an overview and discuss some of the findings because some of you have been reaching out and asking me questions, and so I haven't completed everything. I don't want to show you my final work because I want you to figure it out. But what I want to do is kind of provide a thought process to how I'm going to go about developing my paper and my presentation. So what I have here is my my Excel work, but then what I did is I checked to see what the size of my okay, so it's 3.5 now. It was 1.7 before I added the policy and premium stuff. So I had taken that out and used, kind of did all the analysis without it so it wouldn't bog things down when I was saving things. But now I have it all right here just so I can refer to it. Okay. And I did a video in which I broke all these things down and compared it, all that other stuff. The most important thing with this is that the this information, you can call this analysis, done by the carrier, it's not really providing any priorities. It's not providing an honest analysis or distribution of the data. It's looking at it in very simple ways. And whether this simplicity makes it easier for safety professionals to figure out where should I focus first, how much should we invest into corrective actions, unfortunately, it does not do that. Okay, this right here is probably the most interesting. That the claims by length of service, this 1 to 2 years, is definitely different. It's much higher than the rest, which means something needs to be done to figure out, what are we doing for our new employees? What's the orientation look like? And we need to. So what do we need to do? We got to go talk to them to find out, how is what we're covering different from what you're seeing on the floor? Work done as is versus as expected. So that needs to be done. That's the study point. That's one of the recommendations that need to be made, at least for me. We have, sort of the loss trend here as well. We're lucky to have a reduced EMR from 1.04 to 0.92 this year. But also when the expecteds go up, it'll come back down a little bit so that it isn't as drastic. But again, the base premium amount is set by payroll primarily. Payroll and the class code rate set by WCRB. But we can kind of look at some of these things. And I know some of you actually trended the payroll and they showed how much it's been going up, So I guess I don't have it added up, but I think it is going up considerably just looking at it. Even just looking at that code. And that code, it went from 11 and 16 million to 1624, 1831. So that's been a big contribution to the base, but then the EMR is what we can control. Or not control, it's what we can affect from a lagging perspective. And so, go back and listen to Jim's presentation if you need to. This is the nitty gritty of it, that this is what has occurred. But again, this data is a little bit different than ours. Why? I don't know. They kind of just classified a little bit different. We're not trying to force the data into anything. We're just letting it tell its story. All right. So let's go back to here. So when you put together your Excel, make sure that whatever Zoom you're using, it should be minimum 100, but you can go above that too. So here I've got my two tables. So this is like my table 1A and 1B. I've got the claims dates, the policy years. I've got this information. So this isn't really considered part of the analysis, per se. This is something I'm going to report in my introduction. So because it's basically defining it. It's descriptive. It's defining what we have, how many open claims, reopen claims, things like that. I could also report the breakdown of the indemnity and medical incident, but I decided not to do that just yet. Then we have the distribution. This is a step in these are results, because one of the questions was, what's the quality of the data set? What am I saying by that? Are there missing entries? Is it easy to work with? Does the data represent the assumption of normality, which is the basis for all parametric statistics? It does not. What did I show here? That the average claim is here, the median claim is here. It's very different. Why is it different? Because a majority of the claims are lower than the average. 82.4% of all the claims are below the average amount. That's not a normal data set. And it shows that 11 claims represent 52% of the total paid, which is another way it makes that biased. It's skewed. And we can look and see how many claims are removed. So if there's 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So our most expensive claim so these are the outliers right there. I mean, we probably could have cut it off right here, but then we'd be losing so much more. So what would that be? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that would have been 21. So I think we had done like 23. So that was weird. But maybe we don't have to do that other analysis because this really kind of, I think, shows it pretty well. Did the outlier analysis, 15 claims represented this much? That's really what we're seeing here. We still have some meat on the bone. What do I mean by that? Well, there's still, we still have 235 claims, but they only represent that much. The average claim is now down to just under 2,800. What was it? It was almost 7,000. And the median didn't change that much, nor would it. I mean, it's just 15 claims, right? But you can see that these are now finally getting closer together. So it's that. I mean, that's one of the things you can look at for whether something is normal or not, and that is that the average and the median are close together. You'd like them to be the same. And the max claim went from 118 down to 26. Yeah. So that's what we learned. But as we move forward, we do most of our analyses both with and without, just to see what the difference is, to see if when we did the scatter plot analysis, whether the R-square value increased to the level in which it's a significant or it's significantly more reliable to use that forecasted amount from extending the best fit line out to 2023, or if we need to default and just look at annual averages as the representation for what it'll be next year, which tends to be more conservative. And then we also kind of see an overall direction, right? Because we tracked all that stuff. So one big question that we want to answer, and this is one of the first things management wants to know: how is the safety program performing? Well, it appears that our claims are increasing each year. The total cost, with including the outliers, seems to be somewhat level. It's bouncing up and down, but it tends to be right around 300,000. Though it does look like indemnity is trending up a little and medical is trending down a little. Kind of interesting. But when we remove the outliers, what we find is that it appears all things are going up. So that's the effect of an outlier. That they're really expensive, therefore they can affect the trend of things. And probably the most interesting is how the R-square value went from highly insignificant to significant. That we feel that, excluding those 15 expensive, that in 2023, at minimum, the company's going to have $170,000 in claims. And that's a lot lower than the 300,000, right? But those are the extreme claims. Can we control those? Yes, we can. Well, we can't control them totally, but by having a more aggressive claim management approach, you can reduce costs. And what is an aggressive claim? That is teaching the workers that when they are injured and they go to the hospital, that they're getting the proper documentation, and that we receive that documentation and ensure that they can go to their appointments, and if they come in with a work restriction, we can meet those work restrictions, and we're keeping in pretty, not continuous or constant, but regular contact, checking on them, see how they're doing. Not making them not feel blamed, or accusing them of getting hurt on purpose. We want to speed their recovery. We want to get them back to 100%. And studies overwhelmingly demonstrate that there is savings to be done there. And that's one of the things I said, I think, in week 1 of the course. And it's true. It is. Okay, so safety program, there are opportunities for improvement. By site, we see the breakdown with outliers with between the M and the P. We see with the outliers remove the difference. One thing that I should have talked about is, and I didn't really do it as much as I had wanted to, would have been the outlier assessment, actually going down and reading, what's here, where they occurred, which site, had them. I did break it down a little bit. That's not right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 of those. What? If that to that is, it should be 327. There we go. That's better. So about 50% more happen at site P, and then we can kind of go up. Is it 50% bigger, or how does that work? Right? Okay, I guess we don't have anything up here, but so and then we see that 3076 dominates. Is that going to be one of our is that going to be one of the class codes that we focus on? Is 3179 going to be one we focus on? Are these? And then we can also read what they were in addition to looking at the causes. We got a lot of manual material handling. We got some slip, trips, and falls. I see some repetitive motions, some cut, puncture, scrape. Is that what we're going to find when we look at it without the outliers, or is it going to be something completely different? And then we can kind of read these. Is there something that is frightening about what they were doing just prior to getting hurt, or does it seem like it was all just part of the everyday work? And so if you haven't looked at that, so what I'm going to do is I am going to summarize this table by having the descriptions, by having the total paid, by which site they were, what the cause was, and what the class code is. I will summarize that for one of my slides because I want to talk about this. And again, look at this, how much it represented. Okay, sorry, I should have covered that before. All right, let's get back up to the show. So we did look at class codes with and without, and we used the RPN to rank them, and then that gave us the priorities, and then we determined down here whether we had a Pareto ratio set up, and then that would be our cutoff point. We also compared, when we did class code, to the WCBR rates, because the base premium is calculated by class code rate multiplied by its payroll divided by 100. Then the adjusted premium, which is what companies are actually charged, is the base times the EMR. And if the EMR is less than 1, then you pay less than the base. If it's higher, then you pay more than the base. So your 3-year average performance, not including the current year or the previous year, is the determinant whether you pay above or below what is the assessed cost, the assessed price, the assessed amount of your base premium in order to practice. Then broke down and looked at both Site P and Site M because we would like to know where to focus at each site. We had the priorities of Site P for class code 4484, and we had one cause priority. For 3076, we had 2. It was manual material handling and cut, puncture, scrape. And then we had a third class code, and in that one we looked at repetitive motion. So 2 manual material handling, 1 cut, puncture, scrape, 13179. And with the outliers removed, we had these results tables. Wait, that should be completed. Oh no, that's right. Yeah, so we just have the with the outliers removed. So we have the annual average, which is a very conservative number because it's not taking into account the trend of things. We do see the trend tends to be up, but how reliable is it? Well, the R square value is 0.41, which is kind of surprising considering the way this looks. But because it's below the 0.8, which I've kind of set it as the minimum, we go with the average, which is more conservative than the, we go with this, which would be 10,000, which is a lot less than the 36,000. So we're saying for 10,000, that's above these 4 years, but it's a lot less than the last year that we have completed it. Why didn't we include 2022? Well, remember, we looked at the number of open claims. If there's too many open claims, then 2022 can't really be included because it's going to continue to go up. And so then it'd be realized. I hope that doesn't show up on my screen. Something just came through WebEx. So we had 6 priorities. 4 came from the Site P, and 2 came from Site M, both within the class code 3076, and it was cut, puncture, scrape, manual material handling. And then we created the final results tables. We completely reported all of the annual averages and how it compared to the company-wide and just the site annual averages. And then we reported the trending forecasted losses for 2023 for our priorities and compared that to company-wide and then the individual sites. And then we get to the final table. And so this is our conservative estimates for forecasted losses for the 6 priorities. Again, 4 within Site P, 2 within Site M, and you can see the class codes and the causes. There's some commonalities here. We also identified the outliers that were not included in these estimates and their total amount. A 25% return on investment was our assumption. Then we had to solve for the requested investment. Provided this equation and how I solved for requested investment. In the real world, you would actually know what this number already is, and then you would calculate the ROI based on the forecasted loss. Okay, that's the way it would work. And then if it looks really bad, you'd expand it out 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is, until you really show that there is value in your recommendations. And then that was compared to the estimates that came out of the company-wide and the sites. So this is a very important table. This is a great support table as well for this, all the work. What did we do? We got to this point. Now, what are we going to do with the money? Okay, so I need to make a very important point to everybody before I go back and show you the design of my paper, the design of my presentation. We don't have any answers. Just because at this site, this class code, we have manual material, doesn't mean we need to train them on ergonomics or how to lift properly. We have no idea. We just know where to go and what to ask about. It's about engaging the workers. It's about studying the work. It's about coming up with new or testing new types of assessment methodologies to understand what can we do to design the job so that the worker can be effective, safer, and hopefully elicit satisfaction from the work they do. That's how we're going to reduce the number of claims for each one of these. And what we learn from the study of engaging workers and studying the work and using different techniques and testing things, piloting ideas, things like that, we will learn a better way to do the work, and that'll then be able to be extrapolated to other areas within the plants, I should say, other areas of work. So this is a starting point, and it'll grow from this. So again, we don't, cut, puncture, scrape, wear gloves. We don't know if that's going to actually be the solution. Repetitive motion, I don't know what. Oh, we'll rotate them. We have no idea what the solutions are. In the real world, we would, and then we'd be reporting on the return on investment. We don't have that. We just know where to look. So per site, who to talk to and engage, and then what to ask about. That's what we know here. I think it's a beautiful thing, though. It's better than what we were provided. And then to the job tenure, I did this analysis too, and I would also like to a separate study of our newer employees. Just have a talk with them, and what are you learning out there? What wasn't covered in orientation, or what wasn't clear? that may be leading to them being exposed to things. Are they observing other workers who aren't doing things, and so you're kind of mimicking them, and that's causing you to get hurt? But they have greater knowledge and experience, therefore they can do shortcuts or do things differently and not get hurt. Or are they getting hurt too and they're not reporting it, but you are? These are all legitimate questions. This is all stuff I've actually learned from previous studies I've done. So yeah, I'll report on this too. So that's really all of our findings. Let's get back to the beginning here and I'll show you what I've been doing. So organization is really important. So I started making this table of contents. I didn't complete it because I didn't want you guys to go, oh, I'll just copy what he did there. But I've got the titles of my tabs. I moved the ones that weren't useful anymore over to the left. So I'm kind of using my policy premium and EMR information table of contents as the starting point. Even the master data and pivot tables is over here. I'm not going to talk about those. My table of contents are the things I actually did. And so, yeah, this kind of gives me my table of contents. I'm going to kind of lay out. You can bring up the comments or findings that you provided. When I grade this stuff, I want to be able to click on a tab, see things, and actually then see a comment table of what did we find. In this case, it's the dates or the policy years, the total, the average, the median, and maybe the max. That's about really what we need to focus on. What percent remain open? It's about 10%. It is 10% actually. And on and on. What did we learn from this? I think I talked about that. So for my paper, what am I going to be doing? I'm going to select a professional cover page. So when you open up Microsoft Word, you can go in and for a cover page, you can put in search terms. So I'll use business or analytics or something like that and pick one that looks kind of cool. And I'll make sure that the title is work comp data analysis or a study of loss run data to determine safety program improvements. You can call it whatever you want. Put your name on there, the date. The executive summary, I'm starting to piece things together. The introduction, I'm still working on this stuff too. I've got it actually on paper, but I decided to put it in here. And so in my executive summary, I'm going to start out by letting them know exactly why this was done or what was done. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is my primary goal, so I'm going to try to meet these things. So what was this? It was a data analysis to determine certain things. This is a way to describe the data set. I want to explain the importance, not the importance, the uniqueness. Yeah, the uniqueness, I guess, of our approach being different than what the carrier provided us, and that we start out with a distribution and an analysis of outliers, and what those outliers, why it's important to identify and consider them separate. The justification for the work we did, and that is that we took a systems approach, meaning that when there are trends, things are continuing to occur year over year, the systems approach dictates that we need to actually study these things from the system. So talk to the workers, look at the work they're doing, try to understand it from their perspective, because something actually has to functionally change. Training is not a functional change. Something has to be done to the way the work is being completed so the work can get done effectively, safer, and also elicit satisfaction from it. That's what we're trying to do. Then I start getting into the results. So the performance of the safety program, with and without, the main 6 priorities, the request for investment, and how the company will have sustainable savings if it can continue this effort. Lesser claims, lesser amount of benefits paid per claim, the EMR will continue to go down, and therefore the amount paid per year. There should be lower adjusted annual premiums. Okay, and then I get into the description of it and laying it all out, and I'll get into talking about what is workers' compensation, how are the different benefits defined, and what are some of the rules in Wisconsin with the different forms of disability or restricted duty, what is the EMR, how is it calculated, and how is the base premium calculated. So for all the grad students, make sure you are talking about the work comp. That's part of your requirement. For the undergrads or those in 483, you can do it if you want to. And if you do a good job in covering that stuff like the grad students are, you have the possibility of getting out of the final exam. You don't have to take it as long as you did well in the midterm. Yep. So, but I think what a lot of you are focusing now is on the presentation. And so I put more effort into this. At least this is what I'm getting from what I'm hearing from some of you. So I'm going to have a cover page. Now, there's a lot of things you can do with a cover page, and I think I provided some examples earlier, but I think because we've got so much information, I got to try to squeeze it in wherever I can. So my cover page, in addition to saying the title of all this, I'm actually going to have the distribution table. So I want to start talking about this data right from the get-go. So the title page, I'm going to address how the average and the median are different, that a greater percent of the claims are actually below that average of $7,000, and that 11 claims are I forget what the percent, 52% of the total amount benefits paid. Then the next one will be the agenda. I am going to, I'm not going to just say, here's a bullet of things I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to provide I guess what I'm going to do is more talk about, why the study was done. I'm going to have the descriptive tables here, so what's open, how everything breaks down, and then really just have the study objectives, but I'm going to talk about the basic outline. And I'll talk about tips down here in a second. You'll understand what I mean. I'm going to address the outliers, and that's where I said on the outlier page, I'm going to have a summary table of the 15 claims and what do we learn from those 15 claims? Are we going to find out something completely different when we look at the data without the outliers later and how the priorities present themselves? Or are they the same things? Or are they very similar? I'm going to then get into how is the safety program performing. And I'm going to provide some figures and talk about that these are opportunities. We've got opportunities to improve here. I'm going to cover a sort of a broad swath of the results by site, class, code, and cause, because it was the same approach. But what I really want to talk about is how we use the risk priority number to rank things, and then the Pareto ratio or the Pareto analysis to determine priorities. And we use percent count and percent total paid as sort of a proxy for risk. And basically that helps us, what are we going to focus on? But then what we want to do is combine all these things and then to see where that cutoff might be. I'm going to show a demonstration of how we went from site to code to cause, and then forecasted the cause and came up with that results table that we created for I more or less want to show them how this was created. Okay? How it was created. And I guess I could show like one that is totally completed. Yeah, something like that. That we're using both figures and annual averages to figure this stuff out. Sorry, I went away from that. Back to the pres planning. And then, so as you can see, I tried to estimate the time too. So I'm not going to blabber or just put something up and then try to think at the time what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to keep it very specific. I'm going to try to make a major point per slide. So 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds until we get to the final results table, the big thing. And this is where I'm going to be, asking for money. I'm going to ask for investment. And the reason it's a wise investment is that it was shown earlier that number of claims should be going up. The costs appear to be going up, and that's a conservative estimate. That I don't want to say the word meager, but because it's a lot, that the money will be used to, 1, go talk to the workers and understand it from their perspective. 2, employ different types of job analysis techniques to figure out what can we do. 3, talk to newer workers and find out what in the orientation or what are you confused about? What's concerning you? What are you seeing? And then hopefully what we do is we identify some functional job changes. Let's call them job improvements. And that may be different tools. It may be a different arrangement. I'm not sure. We don't know until we get out there and start talking to them. And we want to try and keep that full investment below that $42,000. If we find that something's going to cost drastically more, well, then we got to go back to management and we may have to reprioritize some things, recalibrate some things. But so that's why I'm spending the most amount of time on this slide. And then finally, I want to wrap up with a discussion about the EMR, that the company is already saving $100,000 this year versus last year because the EMR went from 1.04 to 0.92. Let's try to keep that going. And the best way to keep that going is to invest today. Lower the number of claims, lower the expected number of claims, lower the total benefits paid, expected total benefits paid. And if we do that consistently and are really focused on that, we should be able to keep bringing this EMR down and continue to show savings. And these are savings that are considerable, that will be notable in the margins. Okay? Some other tips to remember. Don't read from the slides. Try to keep use the slide as sort of a talking point, but don't read off of it. And that's why I'm going to be using a lot of figures and tables and try to really focus on certain aspects of them and make sure they look good. Looks matter. Make sure that everything is well designed, easy to read tables, figures, minimal use of bullet points or text. So don't cloud the slide with all kinds of bullet points and words. Try to keep it to just the main points and try to speak to, again, one, possibly two lessons from each slide. Try to come up with some form of a script. You could use note cards, you can kind of put something there. I don't want you to sit there and read to me, but there should be some main points you want to make, and you should be actually pointing out and addressing things that are on the screen. Try to remain positive with all aspects. You don't want to start blaming anybody for this. This is just what it is. And what you've identified is a fantastic opportunity for the company to put in a little bit of money now and save a lot of money in the future. And so try to use that kind of language if you can. Be positive. How's the safety program doing? It's doing horrible. No. The number of claims and the cost of claims appear to be trending upward, which is an opportunity to invest into the safety program. And if we do it right, if we do a good job, it can be a sustainable improvement. All right. We want to gain management's trust through our expression of knowledge and facts. And that's really important. So stick to the results of the study or use published research literature to support your contentions. So like I talked a lot about systems approach. We read that book or that article by, I believe, Pierce. He had the systems one. There were some other things too. I don't know if I ever got to the point where I would actually talk about Heinrich or Bird. Oh, get tired. But I think there's plenty of material that you can refer to. I know that I just kind of do it naturally, and I know that impressed management when I did it. Make sure when you ask for the investment, you explain how the company will save money. That's ultimately management's decision, but try to present it as the only and best choice. And then finally, make sure you reiterate how conservative these estimates were, that the returns will likely exceed those estimates, and ultimately improve the aspects of the work environment. So that's my basic tips to remember. Try to integrate that into your plan. And that's really all it is. Again, 5 minutes goes really, really quick. There's not a lot to remember. You've been working with this data for 6 weeks now, so you should be fairly intimate with it. You should understand what your tables express and just really try to guide management through this presentation. This is what was found, based on the results. This is what needs to be done. This is where the company can, reduce claims. And in doing so, improving the performance of workers, the effectiveness of workers. It should improve morale if we're engaging workers and listening to them and helping them enjoy their job more. Do you see what I mean? Do you see why I've been saying that all semester? What this study has done is allowed us to focus on the areas of the greatest return. That's what the results table shows. It represents where the frequency and severity are its highest, and therefore we got to go study it. We got to get some answers. We don't have the answers yet. I hope I made that point clear. So if anybody is like presenting, it's like, oh, we got to improve training. You don't know that yet. I mean, maybe with the newer workers, but we need to understand it from their perspective. We don't know. We don't have any answers. We just know where to look, and I think that's important. Versus, oh, let's spend $100,000 on a consultant. They'll know what to do. Well, we can do something in-house. And it actually, there's so much value to getting out and talking with the workers and understanding from their perspective and making functional changes to the work versus throwing PPE at it or just training them. Yeah. So let the workers know that we care for them and we hear them, and things get better. Oh man, this is so long. I'm so sorry, but I hope this exercise helped you in explaining what we did, what we found, and how it should be presented. I may do one more. I don't know. I don't bet on it, but I may provide a more expanded look at what I'm going to do for the paper. I mean, once you get the introduction done, the method section, the results section kind of mimic each other. For the methods, it's like just a few lines explaining what was done on each tab, and then the results are what were the main finding from the tab, and then the comments you made basically become the description of it. And then we get to the final stuff. And the final stuff is what I really talked about today and writing the executive summary. That's really, it's good. So anyway, let me know if you have any other questions. I still will be available for office hours, but you guys got this. So look forward to hearing what you have to tell me.